Hey, what's going on, rock stars? In today's video, which is going to be a little bit long, so bear with me, we're going to talk about the world of thrifting, reselling, and buying brand new products. Everything from the quality of goods to the prices to tariffs to things that you never think about on this viral video, which is absolutely insane. Stay tuned to this video, and when you're done, share your thoughts in the comment section and share this video with everybody that you know, because this one's going to blow your mind. Let's check it out.
I'm shopping at Abercrombie for the first time since I was in high school. Mildly triggering because this was like the coolest store back in the day, but I could never afford it because my family is middle class. Now that I'm here, I'm noticing two main things. One is that everything is kind of affordable, which was definitely not the case in high school.
Yeah, she's 100% right. When I was growing up and I was, 14, 15, 16 years old, which would have been, the late 90s, early 2000s, Abercrombie was expensive. Jeans were $100. Polo shirts were $60, $70. My family was American middle class. They were normal, but we couldn't go in there and drop $1,000 on me to get, 2 or 3 pair of jeans and 4 or 5 polos and some shirts. It would have been, $800, $1,000. I bought a couple pieces here and there at some of those stores and when I got paychecks when I was working, but definitely couldn't afford it as I grew up. So she's right about that.
The other thing that I'm noticing is that everything is just a little bit shittier than you would want it to be. I'm seeing a lot of like loose threads on things and a lot of stuff that's just made out of 100% synthetic fabrics. The clothing just doesn't feel like this nice, firm, high quality that I associated with Abercrombie.
Abercrombie still does sell some high quality clothing.
Actually, I really like this dress and would totally buy it.
And I'm glad they've decided to start using normal lighting in their stores. But seeing so much cheap and low quality stuff there made me wonder, did clothing used to be better when I was a teenager? Not just at Abercrombie, but across the board. So
Yeah, the answer is absolutely. Stuff back from the 90s and 2000s were absolutely made in higher quality. Even when we talk about my parents saying things were made way better back in the 60s and 70s than they are now, it's just true. And stuff back in those vintage times, Y2K and 90s and even back to the 80s, were just made better. And she's going to get into that in just a minute. And that's why I think a lot of people are not just the nostalgia of owning those vintage t-shirts and the t-shirt bros and the vintage this and that, because it's cool to be able to wear that stuff and have nice, nostalgia, but also because it's made better and it lasts longer. There's a reason that a lot of it is still for sale, because it lasts longer than all this crap that we buy today. And I totally recognize that. So she's right.
I scoured eBay, Depop, and Poshmark for clothes from trusted brands of the 90s and 2000s. Then I went to those same stores and bought the 2024 version of each item.
Abercrombie was like legendary for really high quality denim.
To compare the old and new, I got help from Amanda McCarty.
I worked as a buyer in the fashion industry for about 20 years. In the span of my career, I saw how what we sell people changed. The two major changes, I would say, are one, nothing fits properly anymore. It's not you, it's nothing about your body, you're great. And two, the longevity of these clothes, even how you feel when you put them on, has degraded.
That's a really great point. 2 great points she makes there. We're talking about the things that are lasting, but does it feel different when you put new clothing on, when you go out to the store and you buy something? Does it feel like you just spent whatever amount of money you spend on something? Does it feel like it's quality? You can pick stuff up and feel like people can be blindfolded, even at thrift stores. I've seen this. And like no quality. Am I crazy? Because I can feel quality, especially in jeans. I can feel it in these. And I love silver jeans. I'm wearing silver jeans right now, which it's face tracking me. My camera's face tracking me. But anyways, these are silver jeans. They're really good quality. They're expensive. They're like $80 to $100. Generally, I'll hit them up on a buy one, get one for 50% off thing. So I'll pay like $100 for one, but I'll get the other one for $50. So I'm only at like $70 or $75 a pair. But I've been having a problem lately. Like 10 years ago, they lasted. But now I've been ripping them at the pockets and the other seams. And it's like driving me crazy where I want to say something to silver jeans. Like, what is going on with the quality of your jeans? You guys used to be tip top in the 2000s, early 2010s upwards when I was like, 25 to 30 and I first discovered silver jeans. So that's a big point. Like the quality, you can feel it, how long they last.
Rated so much. It's just not a good deal.
It's not just in my head, it has gotten harder to find quality clothes that last, even at brands you used to like. If you're wondering why, keep watching. I want you to think about how many new pieces of clothing you bought last year. If you're anything like the average American, it was around 68.
How many pieces of new clothing does everybody buy every year on average? If you had to guess, put it in the comment section.
In 1980, that number was 12. But wait, it gets crazier. In the 80s, Americans spent about 7% of their annual income on clothes. Today, it's just 3%. We spend half as much, even though we're buying 5 times more. This Abercrombie ad from the 80s helps explain why. The high-quality wool was a huge selling point. They even tell you exactly where it's from. And notice how they say this is part of their fall collection? Because in the 80s and 90s, stores only had new clothes a couple times a year, usually a spring-summer collection and a fall-winter collection. And designers would start working on each collection up to 9 months in advance, because clothing production takes a lot of work. They had to think of hundreds of unique designs and whittle them down to the dozen or so best ones, send the designs to the factory, go back and forth with them for months to create a prototype, choose the best fabric, the right embellishments, and figure out the proportions for different sizes. After all that, they'd place a massive order with the factory and then just pray the design would sell. It was kind of like a game of chance. You'd place 2 huge bets per year, and if your styles flopped, you'd be stuck with a whole bunch of clothes you'd have to sell at a discount or just throw away.
So she mentions another point there that the other lady talked about is that fitting, clothes that fit. Even though they have, small, medium, large, extra large, feels like not everything, depending on the quality or the brand, is the same. We always see this in returns that we get on eBay. You sell an extra large and you put the measurements, even though it could, something that's only been used once or washed once, and the measurements are so all over the place, brand to brand to brand. It didn't used to be such a problem back in the day. Like, you knew, okay, I'm a large and that's the size I wear, or I'm a medium and that's the size. Now it's like all these crazy different dimensions. Everybody agree with that? Like, do you think that's crazy that we've gotten to that point? It's such a mind, yeah.
Risk is why so much care and thoughtfulness went into making each piece of clothing, and why you could expect quality at every price point, even discount stores like Sears or JCPenney. Just look at the way JCPenney advertised their suits in this ad from the 80s.
2-piece suits that are expertly tailored, classically designed, and have an elegant touch.
They're not selling you on the price or the trendiness, but on the craftsmanship and design. Even one of the cheaper suits on the market was still pretty high quality, which is probably why, if you adjust for inflation, this $160 suit would cost $600 today.
And for the ladies in the chat that may not be up to date on a men's suit or haven't bought one, or even guys if you haven't bought one in a while, a $600 suit in today's day and age, at least a suit jacket, is probably like a mid-range. Like, cheapo suits are, run-of-the-mill are probably $100, $200, $300. If you start spending $500 to $1,000, you're buying a pretty quality suit jacket this day and age. If you spend over $1,000, obviously you're digging deep. You should be in high quality, but anything $500 to $1,000 is pretty decent. So a $600 jacket should be a really good quality, long-lasting jacket, especially because us guys generally don't wear jackets this day and age, but a couple times a year. At least I don't, unless you have, a job that requires it, I suppose, like a lawyer.
If you go to JCPenney now, you can easily get a 2-piece suit for under $200. So in the 80s and 90s, people were buying fewer clothes, but they'd be well-made pieces that would be worn for years. And keeping up with all the trends, well, that was something only wealthy people could do.
Pull the latest Briones and charge them to our account.
Yes, ma'am.
What are Briones?
6 months of my car payments plus a car.
Then came a little store called Zara, and everything began to change. The New York Times coined the term fast fashion in this 1989 article about the first US store of Zara. The latest trend is what we're after, a Zara executive told the Times. It takes 15 days between a new idea and getting it into the stores. Remember, that took most stores 9 months. How did Zara do it in 15 days? By streamlining this part of the production process with something...
AKA streamlining means making it with less quality and less time and less labor, but you're gonna find out about all that in just 1 second.
...called greige goods. Rather than manufacturing overseas, Zara built their own high-tech factories in Spain, all connected to headquarters by an underground monorail. There, robots working around the clock cut and dye fabrics to create unfinished, uncolored pieces that can be turned into any garment. Once a design is created, Zara can send those greige goods to their network of small shops in nearby regions, where they're transformed into finished dresses, trousers, and tops. Instead of huge orders, Zara makes a small batch of each style to start with. The retail stores can then send feedback to headquarters about what's selling and what's not, and they can quickly ramp up production on whatever's popular, restocking within days if needed. It massively reduced the risk that came with clothing production. Instead of losing money on clearance sales or throwing away unsold goods, Zara's styles often sell out quickly. The designers don't have to predict trends a year in advance, they can just respond to fashion trends as they emerge, though sometimes that gets a little sketchy.
So it's business, right? Like they don't want to plan for 6 and 9 months and buy up all this stuff and then the trend is gone and people don't care about it and it's a different season and now they've lost all this money. It's business. They're not going to do that. If they can produce something in 15 days, get it in the stores, sell out of it, and then move on to the next one, regardless of the lack of quality, I was going to say quality or lack thereof, they're going to do it, right? Like that's business 101 and that's how they make money. We can't really fault them for that, but what you're going to see in the rest of this, we're about halfway through, is pretty nuts.
For example, here's a look from the high fashion designer Celine, from a collection that debuted on the Vogue runway in 2013. This skirt would have retailed for at least $1,000. And here's a very similar looking skirt selling on Zara's website for just $80. According to the Wayback Machine, Zara had this skirt for sale by August, which would have been just a few weeks after Celine's version landed in boutiques. These runway knockoffs and how quickly Zara could get them into stores were wildly popular. By August 2008, Zara's parent company Inditex became the world's largest fashion retailer. This is also when you had the rise of two other fast fashion giants of the new millennium, Forever 21 and H&M, which pioneered a new way to bring the runway to the masses. They'd partner with luxury designers to make exclusive lines for H&M at affordable prices, starting with Karl Lagerfeld in 2004.
God, is it true? Of course it's true.
This part of the story, it seems sort of like a win for the 99%. Fast fashion was making it so that anyone could wear runway designs while they were still popular.
So the problem with this, and I'm gonna ruin the end of the story for you right now, but it is true. You could get that fast fashion, it'd be right there. But over time, and what we've seen, because I've done the video on Forever 21 going bankrupt, twice now, is that everyone loved that. Like, oh, I can get this year's newest crazy dress so fast. But then after a year or two, a couple of years of this, realizing that every year your clothes were falling apart and things weren't holding up, it didn't seem like such a good idea anymore because, well, yeah, I can get it and be cool, but look how much money I'm spending to keep replacing all these clothes. And by the end of this video, she's gonna show you the financial, the environmental, and the business damage that all of this fast fashion entails, including Shein and Temu and all that. So watch and learn.
New thing. Of course, encouraging lots of consumers to buy low-cost clothes that would go out of style quickly would shockingly have some downsides too, but we'll come back to that. Because we can't give the minds behind Zara and H&M all the credit for the rise of fast fashion. We also have to give some credit to Bill Clinton? No, not because of his sick style. In 1994, President Clinton signed NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which made it cheaper to make clothes in Mexico. And a few years later, he normalized trade relations with China. Textile factories started moving out of the US because now clothing retailers had access to the largest pool of cheap labor in human history. Luckily, there was a law from the 70s, the multi-fiber arrangement, which limited how much clothing American and European countries could import from other nations. Unfortunately, the World Trade Organization let it expire in 2005, ushering the heyday of fast fashion. Because now, there was nothing stopping companies from producing everything in the countries with the lowest wages, the fewest labor laws, and the laxest environmental regulations. We've arrived at the fashion landscape that I remember from my teens. In the 2000s, you had 4 distinct buying options ranging in price and quality: high fashion or luxury brands, department stores, mall brands, and fast fashion. But these days, it kind of feels like the bottom of this pyramid has collapsed and everything's a little cheaper and shittier. J. Crew, Anthropologie, Abercrombie, These didn't used to be considered fast fashion, but now they arguably are.
It's not arguably, they are. All those mall brands that have kind of pushed in, H&M, you can see their Hollister, Express, they all were like brands that made a lot of money, and then people realized how crappy when they started doing this fast fashion that they were, and all their prices just plummeted. We know that if you're an eBay seller because you know what the resale value is on brands like a Hollister, an Express, a Forever 21, an Abercrombie. They don't resell for jack anymore. Very, very few pieces are worth anything.
And that's because of two very big things that changed the experience of shopping into the hellscape of today. The first is the 2008 financial crisis. Middle-class consumers no longer had as much money to spend, so they began drifting over to cheaper options.
While all of the other non-fast fashion retailers were struggling, Forever 21 was opening store after store after store. H&M, the same thing. Zara is spreading into other cities. And so the conversation began, how do we compete here? What if we continue to show the same prices on the price tags that we always have? But we know that we're gonna sell most of the units of that style on sale. And we plan for that.
So let's say this dress costs $40 to make, and it retailed for $100 in 2007. In 2010, during the recession, the retailer would keep the price tag at $100, but expect that most pieces will only sell once it goes on sale. So they'll only spend, let's say, $15 to make it, so they'll still make a profit. And how do you...
Yeah, so therein lies the thing we talk about on eBay about bumping up prices and then running a sale to try to get close to the same amount of price or profit that you would otherwise. But this is kind of in the reverse to where they're trying to cut their cost of goods, which we can't do. You got to pay what you got to pay, but they're producing it. So how are they going to get that cost down to offset? Well, she's going to tell you how, and I bet you can probably guess.
Make clothes for cheap? Well, by making cheaper clothes. You add synthetic materials like polyester instead of selling pure natural fibers like cotton and wool. You skimp on details like pockets, buttons, and zippers, and offer less sizes. I could see all these things play out in the clothing I bought, like these men's jeans from Abercrombie from the 2000s versus now. The vintage pair weighs a hefty 761 grams and is 100% cotton.
They feel substantial, long-lasting, really high-quality denim. They have a decent amount of distressing on here that was probably done by hand to sort of break down areas, make them softer. In the fast fashion era, a lot of this is skipped, where it's just like, let's just spray them with acid or do other things that are actually very toxic.
The new pair weighs less at 720 grams and is a cotton elastane blend.
This is that fast fashion trick of, okay, if we add a little bit of stretch, it will fit more people theoretically, and they'll be less likely to return them. But putting elastane in jeans shortens the lifespan pretty significantly. Those elastane fibers that are woven in here, they're plastic and they break. And the more you wash them, the sooner they break. But you get into the cycle where you have to wash the jeans more often to get them to go back to size, right, because they get stretched out.
The other main difference between these jeans, the zippers.
We have a legit, luxurious zipper. Long-lasting, 100% metal. They smoothly go up and down. These are things that you take for granted until you get a bad zipper. The new pair, when you were trying to unzip these, that sound, you can feel like this zipper is going to be a problem soon.
This is a difference of maybe 50 cents, but it's a...
I think everybody watching this movie and this video, this clip, can relate with the zipper thing, right? Like you can feel a good, pulling that zipper and that grrr versus the smooth, quality zipper that goes up and down, and how easy zippers break. I've never had zipper issues, but I always have the pocket and seam issues and around the buttons and all that. So definitely I understand what she's getting at on that one.
Penny's game to get the pricing to work with the targets you're given.
Another area that you can really see how quality degraded is with sweaters. We compared an Anthropologie sweater from today to a vintage sweater made in the 90s.
This sweater is Liz Claiborne, which is like Anthropologie before Anthropologie.
The vintage sweater is 100% wool. The one made today is 100% polyester. The vintage sweater has metal buttons. The other one has no buttons at all. The vintage sweater is a size medium. The one made today is one size.
When I see one size in something, I'm like, oh, it's because they couldn't afford to buy it in sizes to meet the margin targets.
Even with all these cost-cutting measures, traditional retailers were struggling. And that's around the time private equity firms started buying them up, saddling them with debt, and letting all the business decisions be made by finance bros whose idea of fashion is that Patagonia vest over a gingham shirt. And on top of all that, there's still that other huge change that I mentioned, the final death knell in quality clothing, the internet. Social media and fast fashion are a match made in heaven. Social media helps shorten our attention spans, which extends to fashion trends too, which cycle through faster and faster. That makes fast fashion indispensable to influencers, who rely on a steady stream of new clothes for their content. This puts pressure on all of us to wear a totally unique, never-before-seen outfit every single day, which is pretty hard.
Lizzie McGuire, you are an outfit repeater.
I hate this the most, and so I don't like the word influencer. Sometimes I get called that, I suppose. And I sell affiliate products where a company gives me a link to sell a product, and I link it, and you guys purchase it, or whoever watches purchases it or clicks, and I get paid a commission. And I'm perfectly okay with affiliate sponsors and people that link products that they actually own or that they've tried or that they can speak for. I've linked this battery case. I use it on my phone. It's amazing. I've linked this camera I'm recording and this microphone, and I link, thermal printers that we use and light kits and everything that I have, I link. And I do link some products that I don't actually have because other people I trust tell me that they have them and that they're amazing products. But these fashion influencers, what you have to understand is that they get a lot of this clothing, if not all of it, for free. They get sent this stuff in a box every month or every couple of months, and they don't pay for it. And so they just get it and they throw it on and they make a video for you and they tell you to buy this dress or this shirt or this pair of jeans. And essentially they don't even know if it's quality. They may not even wear that dress again, right? Like it might get thrown in the back of a closet. They'll never wash it. They don't know if it's degrading, if it's breaking down, if it's bad quality, if the company is good or not. All they know is they got something free in a box and they put it on and made a video, and if you click it and buy it, they're gonna make money. They're not being honest, right? Like a lot of their reviews are not honest. And they also do it because, like the video just said, they can't be caught. They're an influencer. They can't be caught in the same outfit over and over again. So they gotta have a new piece of clothing every single day, right? I saw an interview, Justin Bieber said, he wears a pair of underwear and when he takes them off, he throws them in the trash. He doesn't wash his underwear, ever. Like he just, end of the day, every pair of underwear he wears goes in the trash, or boxers or whatever. That is insane to me. Like I own my fair share of like boxers and underwear or whatever, but to pick them up and just throw something in the trash after you spent money on it the very same day is ludicrous to me, right? And that's how we've gotten to where we are. And just hearing her say that and watching these influencers on Instagram and TikTok, if you're a fashion influencer or you do clothing, I'm fine with it, but please don't just shout stuff out to get people to buy stuff simply because somebody sent you something for free, or even if you paid for it. If you're not wearing it and learning whether it actually works or whether it breaks, like I'm not gonna sell a thermal printer that every single person that uses it breaks after 3 uses, right? I'm not gonna use this camera if it records shitty videos. I'm gonna use stuff and then I'll let you know after a reasonable amount of time that I've either used it or somebody I know's used it, that it's held up, right? Like I'm not saying there isn't problems with that thermal or with this, it happens, right? Like everything has a problem. But for the most part, every single thing that I review and that I shout out to you guys is something that I can stand behind or that I have not had any issues with or somebody I trust has not had issues with. These other people, these fashion influencers, definitely not the case. Let's keep going.
I guess now it's time to talk about Shein, Zara's more chaotic little sister, the logical conclusion of fast fashion. Shein is a company that focuses on selling as much hyper trendy, super low quality clothing they can for mind-blowingly cheap prices. Shein raked in close to $10 billion in 2020. It's currently the biggest clothing retailer in the world, even beating out Amazon in the US. Shein is not just fast fashion, it's instant fashion. Zara can get products from drawing board to store in 15 days, Shein can do it in 3. Zara can release 35,000 new items of clothes per year. Shein will release that many in just a couple weeks. So how do they do it? Rather than functioning as a cohesive clothing manufacturer with its own factories like Zara, Shein is more like Amazon, a huge marketplace selling clothes from thousands of independent Chinese factories. And it treats those factories sort of like Uber treats its drivers. The factories are hooked up to Shein's software that collects real-time feedback about which items are selling well and which aren't. The software then sends alerts to the factory owners' phones to ramp up or slow down production. It's Zara's small batch production on steroids. And just like other billionaires, Shein finds creative ways to avoid US taxes. See, when you buy something from Shein, your clothes are shipped to you directly from the factory in China. There's no big Amazon-style warehouses in the US full of Shein dresses. And since packages valued at under $800 can enter the US duty-free, Shein merchandise is pretty much always exempt from consumer goods tariffs.
So this is what I talked about in the other videos about China tariffs and new Trump tariffs. And this is whether you love or hate Trump, I don't care about your politics. I'll link the video below, but she's about to tell you exactly why. And this video was made before Trump's doing what he's doing in the last couple of weeks. We may not all agree on it, but there is one thing out of all the Trump tariffs, whether you agree or don't agree with them, that we can all agree on. He's eliminating these loopholes that the Chinese can ship their stuff directly from their warehouse to an American, to my house, duty tax free. They used to do it for any item under 800 bucks. So you go on Shein or Temu right now and you buy a $20 shirt and it ships to your house directly from China. They don't have to pay taxes or tariffs on it, just like we would have to if we went the other way. And they're not responsible to have it inspected, which allows the illegal stuff to come through. Also, they take advantage of that. Not Shein and Temu, but criminals, right? And so they're getting rid of that loophole. De minimis, it's called de minimis. She's going to mention it in a minute, is going away under these new Trump tariffs and other things. So you don't have to agree with Trump's tariffs. That's fine. I'm not getting into politics with you. But that one particular part of it is absolutely a good thing for all of us Americans, no matter how you feel about him.
That exemption, it's called de minimis, was originally created so you could buy a rug or a lamp while you're on vacation and ship it back to yourself without having to pay tariffs. Not for big clothing retailers. 50 years of fast fashion and ultra fast fashion has completely changed our relationship with clothes. Instead of being something to cherish and care for, they're now just another cheap and disposable plastic consumer good. Thanks to fast fashion, clothing retailer is in a race to the bottom death spiral. Everything is fast fashion now. And the thing is, all this overproduction, it doesn't just affect clothing quality. When private equity and fast fashion companies greedily maximize their profits no matter what the cost, that hurts workers across the entire textile supply chain. Now, mass-producing clothing has always relied on extremely exploitative labor and dangerous working conditions. But as the industry gets bigger, the casualties and abuses do keep growing. Like when a garment factory collapsed in Bangladesh in 2013, killing over 1,000 workers. But the fast fashion companies that produce clothes there hardly faced any accountability. So it's no surprise that nearly 10 years later, a 2021 investigation by Public Eye, a Swiss human rights group, showed that factories that supply Shein are crowded and unsafe, with blocked emergency exits and people regularly working over 75 hours a week. Slavery is still an issue too. According to recent investigations, anywhere between 20 and 30% of clothes being sold in the US contain cotton from Xinjiang, a region in China with cotton farms that rely on forced labor from Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities.
The prices that we are offered on these clothes, that are the prices we're willing to pay, are not based in a reality where everybody involved is paid a living wage and works under good conditions.
And so that's the talk of like made in America. If we made things in America, imagine how much these goods would cost, because they're giving us a dress on Temu or Shein for $20 because they're using cheap slave labor and cheap textile mills and cotton pickers and all these different things that they're paying pennies for, right? It's slave labor, essentially. If we did all that back here in America, well, nobody here, an American, is going to work for $2 an hour, right? Like nobody's going to do that. And if you pay these people that are American workers here, and this argument is what happens when we talk about labor from Mexico and when we talk about labor from every other country, Guatemala and all those. How do you pay what is a living wage to these workers to produce a dress that now, because of that cost of labor and material, you can't sell that dress for $20 anymore. You got to sell that dress for $120, and Americans can't afford that, right? Like we can't afford to pay $120 for a dress. Or if you need to go out and buy yourself a new pair of jeans and now they're $200 because you want to make them in America. So what ultimately is the solution here? I don't know. This is a question that I see all the time on Reddit and Facebook and Instagram and all, and TikTok, of course. But I don't know where the solution comes. And, you know, President Trump thinks it's tariffs, and other countries think it's, you know, buying from them instead of China, and we think it's Make in America. And it's just, everybody has 2 cents and an input. And I don't know. What do you guys think? What is the solution to being able to still have affordable goods, be it clothing or cars or electronics, but not giving in to countries and paying for slave labor and all these other things that we're talking about here? What's the answer? Let me know in the comments.
I mean, they're built off of cutting corners and exploitation.
Now, I want you to once again think of all those new clothes you bought last year. How many of them will you still be wearing next year? The year after? The average American gets rid of 81 pounds of clothes per year, and that's nothing compared to the hundreds of billions of pounds of unsold clothing and returns that manufacturers and retailers throw away. No one actually knows how much exactly it is, but we do know that you can see the world's textile waste from space. This mountain of discarded clothes in Chile's Atacama Desert grows by 39,000 tons per year. The polyester that's in almost all clothing these days will take centuries to decompose. None of this bad PR is slowing down textile production at all. Shein is on the verge of an IPO on the London Stock Exchange with a $64 billion valuation. That kind of stuff makes the fast fashion industry seem unstoppable, but there are people fighting back. First, there's that de minimis tax exemption we talked about that allowed Shein to evade tariffs. A bipartisan group of lawmakers are trying to close that loophole.
And since she recorded this video last year, 2024, I believe, of course, now with Trump's tariffs, the de minimis is going away, gone. So I'm sure she's thrilled about that.
Meanwhile, New York lawmakers have introduced legislation to create, for the first time, legally binding environmental and labor standards for the industry. And dozens of brands have been investigated for using cotton from Xinjiang, including H&M, Nike, Uniqlo, Burberry, and Shein. But there's still a lot to be done, and the industry is going to fight every step of the way. Remember when I said Shein's IPO is in London? The reason they're not doing it in New York is because they didn't want to comply with US regulations that would force them to make disclosures about forced
Of course they don't want to tell everyone about forced labor or pay taxes. They're going to go to London rather than the US.
labor in their supply chain. They haven't given up though. They're lawyering up and lobbying against those regulations. Fast fashion is the story of unchecked corporate greed in a bargain for lower prices for, well, you. Though, as we've shown, that hasn't actually worked out for consumers. We need lawmakers to continue cracking down on corporations like Shein, because we all deserve clothes that look and feel good, but don't require exploiting workers and destroying the planet just to be affordable.
And she makes some really good, that's the end of the video. She makes some really good arguments, and I agree, but what is the answer, right? And we talked about that, the forced labor, all that sort of stuff, low quality products, materials, slave labor, slave places, cotton. I don't know the answer. And she obviously has something against Shein, or maybe just the whole industry on its own, big mountain there, but she doesn't like Shein, that's for sure. I'm interested. What do you guys think about this story, about what she said about the quality of our goods, our clothing primarily now versus 1990, 95, 2000, 2005, even 10. And now seeing these companies like Forever 21 and all these fast fashion companies, going out of business, Charlotte Russe and Forever 21 and H&M struggling and Express struggling. And it's because they went to this low quality crap that they sell. I used to buy Express clothes and Guess clothes, and that's all junk now too. It all shrinks, it all rips, I have strings coming out of some of the stuff that I had to get rid of, only after a year or two. And I'm not rough. I'm not a manual laborer. I sit here on a couch or in an office and work. I'm not out playing sports and ripping stuff in my shirts, and I go out and do activities, but I'm not rough on my stuff in the slightest little instance, and it's still getting destroyed, and mostly because of washing machines. I always noticed my stuff was going bad after I washed it. So yeah, I'm interested in what you guys think. I want to give a big shout out to More Perfect Union here for the video. It's an amazing documentary. I know it's a little long. Thanks for sticking around for it. Big shout out to Katie Reed's over there for linking that on her Instagram. I'll link that below as well so you can go follow her. It's a crazy story, and I'm just interested what you guys think. But it's full circle with what we do here on the channel with thrifting, with reselling, with buying these vintage clothes, with what our good friends down the road, Ryan and Allie at Rally Roots do, and saving all that vintage clothes and that it still holds up. It'd be a great interview to sit here, and I should invite Ryan to sit right here on this couch. Rally Roots, if you're watching, I'll text you, Ryan. Come sit on this couch. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the industry and the business. Let's have a little discussion about it, because I think Ryan would have some really good input about the vintage clothes, because that's what he does. He owns that market. So yeah, great video, great talk, and I appreciate you guys watching. It's Monday, April 14th, 2025. As always, thank you for being here. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, leave me your thoughts below. It really does mean a lot to have you in the comment section, and share this video. Put it out to everyone that you know across social media and let them know about this industry and what goes on and why we thrift, why we resell, why we save stuff, and what the business world looks like and what the real world looks like when you're out there shopping on Shein and Temu and all those places. All right, guys, until the next video, I'll see you next time.